Okay.
Right. Just give me one more moment. There we go. Right. Well, welcome everybody. We're a small select group tonight, but that's wonderful. And I'm especially honoured to welcome Linda Berens. Linda really needs no introduction because she's well known to most of us, I think. She's an internationally recognised author, organisational consultant, and a leading personality type theorist. And she's trained many people in type through her Inner Strength organisation, of course, as well. And she's got over 30 years of helping individuals, teams and organisations to reach their potential. She really is one of the type gurus that we all look up to. So I'm particularly honoured to be hosting her session. Linda's going to talk about 3 ways in which we can be out of balance. Can't be me, only be me, and developing me. And how this can get in the way of finding your best fit type and being at our best. So she'll explore how essential motivators can help us break through the barriers to belonging and find balance in yourself and in relationships. So welcome, Linda, and over to you. And I think you just need to start sharing your slides.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the honor of being here. And thank you for the great introduction. I'll remember that on days when I'm down on myself. We all have those days, I think.
Definitely.
Yeah, I was going to say something else, but I forgot what it was. And now my mouse is not going where I want it to go. That's weird. Okay, nothing like a little bit of... Well,
that's right, Linda. You look. I'll talk for a moment while you find them. I know the slides.
Okay, I'll use my touchpad.
We do have the slides because we checked this earlier on. Oh, we've got somebody else joining as well. I'll just admit that.
All right.
Just admit Nick as well.
I may have to use. I think maybe my mouse batteries died. Just in time. Okay, so I'll share my screen here. All right, so let me take just a moment. I'm sorry, I am not a fan of the trackpad. I want to be able to see you all so that I can see if we ask questions and things like that. So I have to do this. Sorry for the... nothing like having that happen.
That's okay, Linda. And I will also, I'll keep an eye on people and I'll keep an eye on chat if anybody puts anything into chat.
Okay.
Did you want to put your slides onto slideshow?
Yes. My computer's way out of reach. That's part of the problem. Okay, so there we go. Now you've already seen the other slides. Okay, so I'll do one more thing, hopefully. There we go. All right, that's good. All right, so, well, we've had this part, so I'm going to skip it. And thinking about this conference of balance and belonging, and I thought, well, what's type got to do with it? And where did this come from? So I made up some things. And the thing, I came up with these terms. So it's really kind of about 3 ways of being me. So many of you may know this slide. This image, I usually develop it, but, animate it, but there are these different selves that we have, and there's probably more than these 3, but there are 3 that really we need to pay attention to when we're working with clients and when we're sharing type information with others. And that there is the innate core self, which is where our best fit type lives. And then there is this developed self, which, as we know from type development and just growth and development, we sometimes don't look like that innate core self. And then there is the contextual self, which is where we are responding to different things and sometimes developing a fair amount of skill there. So but looking at that, these questions that I had is one way of, do I get to be me? That's the question that comes into play when we're born into an environment that doesn't allow us to be ourselves. I think a lot of people sign up for our certification trainings not to get certified. They don't, they sign up because they want to sort out their best fit. And I've had people go through the training 3 or 4 times, still trying to figure out their best fit, because they kind of were in so many different environments where they couldn't figure out their best fit because they weren't allowed to be themselves. They got lots of negative feedback when they were themselves. Some of that comes from culture, and some of it comes from family and all kinds of other places. All right. And then there's another, am I only being me? So sometimes our current behavior is kind of restricted to this only be me. So that we tend to ignore the developed self, ignore any flexibility, and dig our heels in and have to be ourselves. It's like, I'm going to do it my way no matter what. And then we have, am I in this developing me? So when we're working with clients, and even when we're trying to figure out our best fit type, sometimes we're in a developmental mode. And so what we are looking like and what we relate to is a stage of development, or where we kind of are enamored with a different type. So I think this happened with me. My preferences are INTP, and David Kersey, when I was working with him as my mentor on my dissertation mostly, but he said to me a little later as we were staying in touch, he said, I'm not tough enough to be an INTP. I'm an INFP. That's how he saw me. Well, I had just been through a training and counseling, and a whole lot of other influences on me. I was a fairly young mother, and just lots of things. And so I was being somebody else at the time. So 3 ways of being out of balance. I call them, okay, let's get that. I call them can't be me. So sometimes we're in those situations where we can't be me. One is then only be me. And another way is the developing me. Now, all of these impact how we are able to feel good about ourselves, our self-esteem. They affect how we read other people, how we help people clarify their best fit. So I wanted to do a little bit of exploring with these. So the thing I think of the lenses that can help us with this is the essential motivator pattern, or they're commonly known as temperament. By the way, the reason we don't call it temperament at Inner Strength, because temperament in the literature, the research literature, looks more like interaction styles or social styles. It looks more that it just really doesn't look the same as the Kersian temperament descriptions were. And they don't relate to the type code so well. So anyway, so how do we get back in balance and find belonging, and just recognizing that we have these core psychological needs that are so important to us. We have values that go along with those, and we have talents that help us scratch the itch that the needs create. And that's some of the key to getting out. And then we have these behaviors. And that reminds me, I was going to tell you, there is a handout. It was posted late, so it isn't one that you really need. It was just some information and a nice little worksheet for you to go through at the end. So just so you know that. I'm not going to reference the handout really. Okay, so 3 ways of being out of balance. Can't be me. That's well, if we have somebody who's in this mode of can't be me, it's one of the questions is why. What's in the way of you being you? Doesn't mean it's a bad thing, but it could be. And how can you turn it away from, let's say that you feel like you can't be you because all the people around you are quite different from you, kind of. And so that may be good in terms of growth. It may have a negative impact in terms of how you're feeling about yourself. And then both of those could be true. There's a big impact on finding best fit when we are in a stage or a mode or a situation where we can't be ourselves. And sometimes that's so strong, it takes therapy and lots of self-reflection to get out of that. Sometimes it's temporary, but part of a growth process. And it also impacts well-being, because if we're born in a certain way, my belief, and I think it's supported by a fair amount of casual research, is that our type patterns are there from the beginning, what is naturally there. And we're designed with certain talents and gifts and certain purposes in life that we are suited to apply those talents and gifts for. So if we are in this situation where we can't be ourselves, we don't feel so good. Not necessary for if it's, especially if it goes on for a very long time, and if it really isn't a can't, like life and death kind of thing. All right, so the 4 patterns, I know some of you already know a bit about temperament, or you probably wouldn't have come, or essential motivators. So there's the improviser pattern that happens to go with S and P in the type code, and that is just because the patterns matched. And when you get into cognitive dynamics deep, you could see how it makes sense, but it's just a match of patterns. So the core need for the improviser, those with an improviser pattern, is this freedom to act now. There's a sense of tuning into what's here. It's important to respond to that because impulses don't last. And that having that ability to make an impact, to make a difference, to really have an impact on whatever's going on. And the talent that they have for that is tactics. So the tactical intelligence is what helps them have that sense of well-being and be themselves. Stabilizer, the name itself, to stabilize, to bring a sense of continuity. The core need is to have a place where they can contribute. Now, we have belonging in this list, so belonging and security. And I've come to believe that belonging may not belong there. But it's just that this sense of having that place to contribute and a sense of community and belonging is very important to the stabilizer pattern. We all have basic belonging needs, though, and I'll touch that in a little bit. But to have that sense of security. And their talent is logistics, getting the right things in the right place at the right time and the right quantity and the right quality to the right people and not the wrong people. That ability to manage all of how things are going to play out, not just making them happen, which can be satisfying, but actually putting together things so that they work well. And that's their talent. And the talent will help you scratch the itch that your needs create. Okay, so the next one is theorist. And this isn't all about theories, although some of us who have this pattern are really all about theories and models. But it is about understanding the operating principles of the universe so that you can proceed with that. The core needs are knowledge and competence. It's having that knowledge and being competent at executing and doing the kinds of things that, or whatever it is, whatever your domain is, to be good at it. And having mastery and self-control is very important for someone with a theorist pattern. And their talent to help them get those needs met is strategy. So having a picture or a plan, or not necessarily a plan, but a sense of we need to go there and here's how we can get there. I recently, little sidetrack here, have been through a kitchen remodel. It's not done yet. And it's been extremely frustrating because I couldn't get the strategy fixed. Where do I even start? And I couldn't get a strategy in advance for it to work. Oh, it wasn't all my being doing, but anyway, so it's that talent is very helpful for the theorists to feel like they have mastery and self-control. And then we have the catalyst, and that this is entering into, as a chemical catalyst does, enters into an interaction and doesn't get lost in it. So they catalyze things. Core needs, unique identity, and meaning and purpose. So there's this sense of who I am. So being and doing is very important to the catalyst in alignment with themselves. And the meaning and purpose is that there is some purpose that we're working toward for them. And the talent that comes into play here is diplomacy, which isn't about the political kind of diplomacy, but knowing what to say to make people feel better is an example of that kind of thing. So getting all of the arrangements in a relationship working together. Lots of ways that diplomacy goes. Keep reaching for my mouse. Okay, so that's just the 4 patterns. And so when we have those core needs and values, and we're in a situation where we can't be us, means that those needs are not getting met, and those patterns are just not able to play out. And if we can't use our talents, then we have a very hard time of being in balance and having a sense of belonging, actually. So understanding that is very important as one key thing. And then there's another way of being in balance, which is only be me, or being out of balance, sorry. And that happens, that's interesting, that sometimes this is what happens after someone has been introduced to type. Is you're stuck in your own type preferences. Oh, I'm an INTP, so I don't do that. I'm guilty of having thought that, maybe even saying it. Of course, well, don't expect me to take care of those logistics. And so sometimes just really, that's my way is I just have to do this. So stuck in our own type preferences. And then so the question is sort of like, what triggers this? What triggers this to go into only be me? And sometimes it's because we haven't known who we are and haven't been getting our needs met and able to use our talents. So we wind up getting triggered and rather rigid in the only be me kind of thing. And so it's like my way or the highway. I thought I'd give you a little more information here to help with that. How do you get out of it? Well, that's a big story. Part of it is about the work that we do with type is helping people understand the differences and helping them to learn to shift perspectives. And sometimes you have to go back to help people see where they got stuck if you're in a coaching or a therapy mode. But it's really, if you find yourself in a situation where you've only been able to be you, you kind of have to ask yourself, am I being rigid in this? Or are people expecting me to be only me, and then they're surprised that I can't, that I'm doing something different? Okay, so only be me often involves using our talents. And I'm not gonna read all this. Actually, mostly it's there for the picture. So for the improviser pattern, there's a tactical skill set. So every problem will, if you're being in this only be me, you will tend to find a tactical solution. I'm going to take action now. And so here's this little problem here. And what are you going to do? You put the thing across it, and you can, you can cross it without having to look down at your feet so you don't step in the ditch. So there's a tactical solution here. So reading a situation or expressions, adapting to changes, following, knowing what to do now, all of these kinds of things that are on this list thinking contextually to get relevant information, varying your actions to fit a situation. All of these are wonderful skills and talents for people to have. And sometimes what happens is if you have an improviser preference, the approach that you're used to using is tactics, so you're likely to apply that approach to any problem that comes up. And then you may be stuck a bit in the only be me. I'm keeping track of the time here a bit. And then, well, what about using the logistical skill set? So for the stabilizer, this is such a good image that my daughter found and created, is that that you bring that stability and provide that support and protection to things that go right and don't go wrong. So this would be the approach. Well, we can't get started yet. We can't solve that problem because we have to work out all of the logistical plans, getting the right things, information, right place, right time, right quality, right quantity, not in the hands of the wrong people. Structure, standardizing, providing service, taking care of details, creating and attending to people's comforts. So there is a people side to it. Thinking sequentially to provide pathways to stability. So if somebody is kind of stuck in only be me, they may sort of insist on taking that sequential, taking a sequential look. And monitoring and measuring. So they may want more measurement than some of us are comfortable with. So that's some of the overuse of the talents is in an only be me stance. So that's some of the ways where we're kind of putting our own agenda on the solution. Okay, the strategic skill set, you've got many ways to go. So what's the strategy to get there, which is knowing where to focus for the long term. Like we don't need to take the action now, that's the tactics. We don't need to understand all the things that are involved. We need to focus where we're going so then we can come back and do those other things. So the relationship between the goal and the means, thinking of unthought of possibilities, multiple contingencies in terms of whole systems. Even the language is a bit abstract and complex patterns, differential thinking. So there's a goal about getting at the accurate and effective solution and formulating that strategy. So if somebody is stuck here, they may refuse to go forward till they have that sense of what's the strategy. Now, that's not a bad thing to know what the strategy is, but if they're only being themselves, they've turned the volume up on strategy as the solution. So just beware when I'm around. That is likely to happen. Okay, and then for the fourth pattern, the diplomatic skill set, this gives you more of a sense of what it is, not diplomacy, but it's what diplomacy is supposed to be. Striving to unify by understanding and resolving deeper issues. So it isn't just this problem here. Let's look at what's going on, especially interpersonally, and having empathy that informs that effective communication. Now, there are some myths that those who have a preference for the catalyst pattern has a preference for the diplomatic skill set. There is a myth that they're always going to be diplomatic. That's not always the case, but that this is what they are. They're going to tend to do, which is to have empathy and inform that effective communication. But they too can get stuck in their views of what that is. Interpreting unspoken meanings, interests, and intentions, clarifying values, mission, purpose. Often their skill set is about building bridges between people, so they often are more satisfied in their work if they're able to do that. Integrative thinking as opposed to differential thinking. Well, so how is this alike? How is this similar? How is it part of the whole? And where the differential thinking of the theorist is to take a look and see all of the differences. And then revealing issues that need to be transformed. So if you have this pattern for your best fit, then you might get a little only be me in focusing on discussing issues when others might want to be doing something else, and it might not be the right thing to do at the moment. So that's the breakout before that. So I'd like us to do a little bit of a breakout before I do this. I'm going to escape this. And if we can go into a breakout room for about 10 minutes, and I want to talk to you. I want you to think about, actually it's the questions that are on this worksheet, ways that you've been stuck in the only be me. And also you might think of times when you couldn't be you. So just a couple of things to talk about and see if this makes sense, and to kind of put some meat on the bone of the structure. So just spend about 10 minutes talking about that. And then when we come back, we'll do a little bit of sharing of insights that you had and some stories that will make more sense before we get into the next topic.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Linda. So I'll put people into breakout groups. I know that Renee is just on his phone, so I won't include him in a breakout group. So I'll do it as it is. There might be a group with just 2. There might be a group with 3 or 4. I'll do it as is. If there's a problem, leave the room, come back and tell me. Right. You should be getting invitations to join breakout groups now. Yeah. Okay. So I think I will move one person. I'll move Mary to room 2. She'll get a shock. Possibly. Oh, I'm not sure that worked. Yes, it has worked. So I've just done that to equalize. I've left Renee Boujard out, and obviously I've left you and I out.
Okay. I'm fixing my batteries.
Oh, right. Okay.
Nothing like having your mouse die in the beginning of a presentation. I don't know, maybe it's worse to have it die in the middle.
Well, I don't know. I hate technology. Well, I love it when it works, and I hate it when something goes wrong. Oh, we've got David Powell is just joining us, so I'll let him join.
Okay.
I'll put him into a room.
Okay. So David, before you let him, I don't know, let me tell him what he's doing.
Yeah. Oh, and I must stop the recording. I'm sorry. Let me just pause.
Right. Oh, geez. I'm still in screen share. Hang on.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to have this. And I got the mouse going, but no, there we go. I changed my batteries. Not everybody gets to change their batteries when there's a breakout room. So what kinds of things did this spark? And it was mainly about it's times when you were in a situation where you couldn't be you, or in a situation where you were in a state of only me. So I'm going to move your. Oh, you've got me spotlighted. Yeah, thanks. I like to see everybody.
Yeah, there you go. I've removed it.
There you go. Thanks.
Thanks.
So what thoughts, insights, shares? Is this a bunch of hooey, whatever you want to say? I don't know if you know what hooey is, but yeah, Dario.
So okay, I'll go first. I shared with the group that I have to be very, like, even build in external checks in my life to pull me out of tunnel vision, which is a form of obsessing, and that I can fall into it even without noticing it. And so I need to build in things that will, like, shock me out, or a person that gives me feedback that will, like, pull me out of it. And so I feel like that really is one of those things for the theorist that I relate to a lot as a challenge.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think so. just thinking about things is pretty important, especially the introverted versions. Yeah, so that's kind of an example of how to manage an only be me kind of thing. So you put some external controls or checks on it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Other ways? Only be me? Anything that came up?
Yeah, I talked about I was with Mary and Yvonne, and Mary had a great example as well. But I spoke about my situation. I have a organizational effectiveness background. I'm ESFP. I'm all about sensation. I'm probably very one-sided, but anyway, I am training as a Jungian analyst here in Zurich, and I am literally in a sea of people with intuition. And I've done a lot of work, not to big up myself, to integrate mind, fear, function, but I've had a lot of tension with the students at my training institute who have intuition, because I literally just walk in, I'm their inferior function personified. I sit right next to them, and so being me, I know creates a lot of tension in my first, second, third semester at the training institute. I think we all collectively reached an agreement, and it's a lot easier now, but that I felt it was very difficult being a sensation type and with a lot of people who had intuition.
Right.
So being me I really felt I had to dumb down me in a way so as not to trigger everyone else.
Yeah. So you were in a can't be me situation.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, obviously you're an adult and a student, so you have more awareness and all of that and you have models to help with that. Just even recognizing that they're tapping on, where they're going to go is tapping into a shadow function for you. Yeah. So how's that? I guess I'm curious to know if there's an impact on your well-being.
Yeah, there was. I was very, very stressed because I felt every time I walked in there was a comment about what I was wearing, my aftershave, anything sensation was literally commented on. And because I'm a sensation type, it's just so, it's like, I'm wearing aftershave today and I'm wearing a really bright shirt. That's just what it is. And I love to have fun. So everything was just too serious for me. But it was really funny. There was a day when one student decided to have dinner with me quite spontaneously and actually became contagious. About 15 other students said, "Oh, we'll come with you." So I ended up going out to dinner with 15 other students completely spontaneously. We got completely drunk, ate a lot, and they've never gone out with me ever again because I could see they were really exhausted by the end of the night. But that really broke the tension with these students because they realized, oh, okay, we see where you're coming from now. But the whole night, what shall I have for dinner? What's on the menu? And what's the? And I felt I felt I was like the Pied Piper that evening because there were people with their inferior function very willingly, but I was kind of guiding them through what it's like to be an extrovert sensation world, which is food, drink, fun, and life of the party, that kind of thing. That broke the tension, and ever since then, things have been fine. Things have been fine. They do accept now that I am different typologically.
Yeah, well, maybe eventually they'll learn that they should find that there's something they can learn from that.
Yes.
Yeah. Other things about the don't be me or can't be me, and what's the other one? I did make these names up, so can't be me and only be me. Any other examples of that?
I get stuck in only be me, or as an INFP, my primary function or my dominant function is introverted feeling. And its inspiration is to try to get to extroverted thinking, to be able to like build something or do something. And I have such a hard time getting out of the first two functions, getting down into the third and fourth function to use them. Or it's like getting over a wall, or that I have a hard time getting over that wall to use the introverted sensing and the extroverted thinking. And so as a catalyst, I have a hard time getting over into that like sensing thinking area.
Yeah, and my guess is for Catalyst, liking growth and seeking growth and development may motivate you to do some more things around that, like to pay attention to it. Now you can name it. Now you can see more ways to, be a little bit different.
Yeah, be willing to stretch
Yeah.
into those other functions in order to get to the fourth function where I'm able to actually accomplish something.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's in fifth function for me, so I'm allergic to it. So yeah. So this, when you're in situations where you can't be me, I think, kind of like Nicholas had said, we have the ways out of it is to give a language to it. And in this situation of only be me, it's sort of a self-talk language that you have to say, okay, this is something that's going to take more energy. Reward yourself afterwards, or do something like that. So it's an interesting way to use cognitive dynamics, actually, and then to pay attention to your motivations too, and your talents. Are they being used? Anything else from all of that?
I mentioned to you, Linda, in the breakout. Do you want me to in the break? Do you? Yeah. So I think some of you might have been in Catherine Hirsch's session this morning, where we talked about values, and there was, of the list of values that that were there for us to choose from, a lot of the people with the catalyst temperament chose authenticity as one of their 3 most important, and there were 3 of us with the theorist temperament, and all 3 of us had chosen excellence as one of our 3 top values. And when we discussed that, I mean, we sort of morphed that into competence, but basically I think we all talked about, the frustrations when you can't be you, when you can't do what you're good at. So, if there's something that you want to be really competent at, but the routine demands of day-to-day life are stopping you having the time to do that, that causes frustration and lack of well-being. And I think the other thing is, if you're doing stuff, but where you think other people aren't meeting those standards that you like to set for yourself, that's uncomfortable and difficult to deal with, both for you, but also then, your behavior isn't always quite what it should be towards others, because it comes very easily to us to criticize others. So yeah, those sort of problems of being too much ourselves sometimes, or not being able to be enough of ourselves.
Yeah. And they don't see that the critiquing is actually trying to be helpful. So yeah. So I was looking back at what I had talked about it's in a bit in the handout, that there's some ways out of this, and I might, in many ways, and I think cognitive dynamics, or the 8 functions, sometimes can help you get out of it. Of course, I see that Essential Motivators is also a way to get out of that. So with these things that the only be me, can't be me, you wind up being out of balance. And so when you're out of balance, how do you get back there? And so I want to share with you some slides again with my trusty mouse working. Okay, oops, I'm moving too fast. Okay, so when we're out of balance, these are the essential motivator stress behaviors. So one thing that's really a little bit different in terms of, I don't know, it's part of when those core psychological needs aren't getting met, we go to great lengths to get them met. So what others might call dysfunctional behavior is really an attempt in this model to find our balance back. And so for the improviser, when they get out of balance, they tend to test limits. When their core psychological needs aren't getting met, become more adventuresome. So those are some things that they tend to do. For stabilizer, they tend to complain, become sick, sorry, tired, worried. Those are all kind of things to complain about, because it takes the focus on the ways they're not being responsible. And that's a very important thing for the stabilizer pattern. For the theorist, when they become stressed and don't feel competent and they don't have a place to be knowledgeable and competent, they tend to obsess, which is get overly focused on something and ruminate over it and focus it too much, or they kind of flip into a mindless state where they can't remember anything, can't think of anything, and actually become incompetent. So those are the stress, one of the behaviors that happens when they're out of stress, out of balance. For the catalyst, the biggest stressor here is, and what happens is losing touch with their own identity and purpose. And for a catalyst, I think identity and purpose is important for all of us, just like all these other things are important for each pattern. But for a catalyst, that's psychological death, to not really have a sense of identity and to not see the meaning and purpose in something. So they wind up sending the phony self out and become fake and phony. So you might recognize that these are some of the indications that you are out of balance, that you're either insisting on being you or you can't be you. So what do you do? How do you get your balance back? Well, so for the improviser, one of the things that's really important is to find options, and this is how you can help someone who has an improviser pattern. Find options and new ways to have impact, and find some new exciting activities, ways to be interesting, for things to be interesting. For the stabilizer, this is a way to help them, more often to help yourself than helping themselves, but just to recognize that if you're having this stressor, actually for the stabilizer in all of us, but if you're having those stressors come up, that you feel left out, you feel like you're not included, it helps to find ways to get included in news, in activities, and appreciation. Those kinds of things can help the stabilizer. And to recognize, even just to appreciate yourself is something that goes with the stabilizer pattern more than some of the others have trouble with. And finding a new place to contribute. So making sure that there's a place where you're actually making a contribution. This would be true for the stabilizer. And for the theorist, reconfirmation of competence. So this is challenging because theorists have a little bit of trouble once they decide they're incompetent. They sometimes just can't see anything beyond that. But find ways that you're competent. And if you're interacting with a theorist who's under that kind of stress, you can help them with that. And sometimes it's about taking on a new project. And the downside of new projects is you get on too many and then you're not competent. So that's a bit of a problem, says Linda, who knows about that. But sometimes what it takes is something new. And it's to deal with this stress of I'm in a situation where I can't be competent, so I'll do something new. And for the catalyst, losing touch with their own identity. Now that's very interesting. I think I have a typo.
I think that's a typo. It got carried over, I think, from the previous slide.
Yeah.
For the catalyst.
Right. So it's helping them be in touch with their own identity and purpose, sort of spend time focusing on it, do some purpose work, find some purpose, spend that time with, there are books out there on purpose work, and spend some time reflecting on what really would give meaning to you. I think it's getting back in touch is what it should say. And then the sources of meaning, finding new sources of meaning. If you're not finding any, go find some others and get those going. So in spite of the typos, we got through that part.
Yeah. There's one other one that I noticed on one of my slides. One for a catalyst is affirmation and nurturing from self and from others. So, taking care of yourself could be
Thanks, Mary.
could be with new projects or new investigations, but it also is just taking care of yourself or seeking some care from somebody you trust, a trusted friend, for example.
Right. I'll have to change this slide before I use it again. Okay, thanks. Okay, so the last part here is the other piece of being out of balance is developing. Is it the developing me? And here's the thing. Development is a good thing. So but it can be unsettling. And so as you start to develop other aspects of yourself, and whether you want to use the 8-function model to think about that, or if you just want to think about ways that you've grown and developed over the years. And, that's sort of like David Kersey saying that, oh, Linda, you're an INFP. There is this catalyst side to me that developed early on for some reason. But when I look back at what I was like younger, it wasn't me, but it was a developing me. And so there had this sense as it developed that it wasn't me. So is this really me? Is a question that we probably start to ask when we're in that, and it's unsettling. And then there's this thing, can I really do that? And so as we're looking at these things that we need to do that would give us more balance, it's sort of, can we do that? And so I have a slide for that. This is a picture on my wall. I was fairly young, I think the age of 20 maybe. I got married when I was 19, so yeah, I may have been 20, 21. And I had to take an art class for my elementary teaching credential. And I can't draw. That was my self-talk. And I produced this. And I wish I had kept the pencil drawing, but the assignment was to do crayon, and it was a mixed media. You can't see it, but there are little dots of glue in the middle, and you do a wash over it, and then you scrape it off. So the first of it, pencil, then crayon, and all of that. But this I keep on my wall because when you're trying new things, it feels like you can't do it, but you can. And so we can't say those things to us and ourselves anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So that's on my slides. I'll just get out of there. I think one of the reasons that I have one more bit to say, because it is 1 o'clock, and that is that what does belonging have to do with this? And I think part of it is knowing these models, these different lenses. Of course, this is my favorite one, Essential Motivators, but helps you recognize that this may be the reason you aren't feeling like you're belonging. Because, well, Nicholas's story, what need I say? It's not only the sensing and intuiting, it's the improviser pattern and the catalyst and theorist pattern that you were kind of having to, be in. And then how do you find ways to belong? And we can do things if we turn the volume up too loud and I'm only going to be me, then we won't get that belonging. And if we expect everybody to be like us, then we won't, we may not get it because we're going to be the odd person out. So it's about changing our expectations and recognizing what these various personality theories can do to help us. But Essential Motivators, I think, can give us some very good clues about ways that we're hard on ourselves, ways we can be easier on ourselves, ways we're hard on others, and ways we can be easier on others. So thank you for your time and attention and participation. That was a short 1 hour.
The time always goes quickly, Linda. Thank you ever so much. And I love
Thank
that
you.
summary that you gave there at the end
Oh,
about
thanks.
others being like us, or too much like ourselves, or whatever. That was really good. Does anyone have any final questions for Linda before we sign off? It is just past the hour, so we do need to stop now. No, I think that's probably a no. So I will stop. Thank you again, Linda, for doing
Oh,
this.
thank
I'll
you.
stop the recording.